Okay, Jeff Gordon has joined us. We appreciate Jeff coming in. He drives the number 24 Drive to End Hunger Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. Right now, Jeff is ninth in points, and I know you'd like to get this win here at the Watkins Glen. And remember you saying last week and when we were at Pocono that a few years ago there was really only a handful of drivers that you thought maybe were what you would thought serious contenders at the road courses, but now that's all changed. And maybe talk about that a little bit because you've had success at road courses as well as other tracks, but road courses in particular, and how that's kind of evolved, maybe, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's probably a handful of guys that are the real big threats. You know, the guys that, like the Montoya, Juan and Marcos, but there's a bunch of other guys that are holding their own and putting up good laps, qualifying well, and maintaining pace during the race, which makes it, just more challenging than it's ever been. So, and the cars are as competitive against one another as they've ever been as well. So yeah, it's evolved and changed a lot over the years, but still love coming here. So much fun, fast racetrack, challenging racetrack, and looking forward to enjoying our final road course of the year.
Okay, we'll take questions. We'll start with Mike Hembry right here, Claire B. Lang, and then Dustin.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. Jeff, your finishes the last 5 or 6 races, your climb from, I guess, 16th to 9th in points, would indicate that you're kind of on a roll and maybe this might be your best shot in a few years going into the chase to really be a significant factor in the championship run. Are you kind of feeling that? Is that energy building?
Wow, how things change in 1 week. Last week it was got a shot at making the chase, and I think that right now what I love about the chase is that it offers just that, what you're talking about, that you can be off the pace or not having things go your way early in the season, and you can get it turned around and get that momentum and find the speed and do the things that you need to do as a team to get yourself geared up. And if you make it in that chase, you really could be a threat at winning it. And I think at this point, I don't think that we're considering ourselves the contender for the championship, but I think we're a real serious contender in the wild card, in that 9th and 10th position. And I've always been a big believer you got to walk before you can run. These next 5-6 weeks will decide whether we're going to solidify that, and if we can become a real threat for the championship. But, we've got a little work to do still yet.
Claire?
More runs like last week, and I'll say yes.
Go ahead, Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. First, how wild does it seem without Tony Stewart in the field? And then second, I have a question about the road course racing here.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite sunk in yet. I was in Knoxville this week with our Kick It for Kids Cancer program there, and they're doing the kickball tournament today, which it's been such a great relationship to be on Shane Stewart's car at Knoxville, but to go there and be in that environment of sprint car racing and around the people that are feeling the impact of that. And now here I come this weekend to this race where the impact is being felt here as well. So, Tony's such an influential person in motorsports as a driver and just as a supporter of racing, that it's tough. I was looking all over those cars, trying to understand what happened, and you're there and you just, you're in awe of these awesome beasts of race cars. I mean, 930 horsepower, 1,400-pound cars, tons of downforce. I mean, they just fly. They impress you, and it makes me want to get behind the wheel of one. So I totally understand the appeal, and then you look at Tony and his talents, and to go out there and and be as competitive as he is. I mean, he has shot at winning these races, which, you know, is unbelievable. You know, he's racing against guys that do this every single weekend. But they are somewhat, I can, you know, compared to the Space Cowboys of the NASA program, you know, several years ago, where, you know, they're sitting on top of a rocket and without a lot of protection. And I hope that this can actually be a great benefit and influence on the sprint car community to make these cars safer. There are some areas that I think could be improved. The cars are lightweight and they're fast and they're cool and awesome, but we've seen a lot in seat technology in that series. But I think that we're seeing this type of injury that's happening from time to time with that torque tube and drive shaft being so exposed. And the lightweight components. So I hope to see you know, something like this advance that. But yeah, we're missing Tony. Haven't had a chance to speak to him yet, but you know, we can't wait for him to get back as soon as possible.
And real quickly, other than the Cup guys getting better at road course racing, how has the road course racing itself changed since you first started being really good at it?
Well, again, I go back to, you know, I feel like we put good you know, a good amount of effort into our road course package, improving the brakes and the cooling and you know, dialing in the transmission gearing and you know, just like the cars on the ovals, we're used to be able to do more things to the cars to have an edge over the competition because how they inspected the cars there was just more gray area. So we would also take advantage of that on the road courses. And, you know, I think that not everybody looked at the road course. They kind of looked at road courses as throwaway races in some cases. And that's just not the case now. Everybody takes these races very serious. The cars can't be manipulated as much. You know, everybody has good brakes, and everybody has, you know, all the equipment that you need to go be competitive. So then it just comes down to the driver pushing the limits of the car and the team engineering finding the right package to go fast at those tracks.
Let's go to Destin and then to Holly and then to Connie in the back.
Destin Long, Motor Racing Network. Jeff, 5 top 10s in the last 6 races. It's a better stretch, obviously, than what you guys had result-wise. What are things that you're seeing that you guys are accomplishing? Is it just a simple thing of not making mistakes or not beating yourselves, or what do you see that's happened here this last stretch where you guys? Or is it just a case of you?
We haven't been on pit road when the caution came out, or getting ready to make our pit stop when the caution came out. You know, I mean, just you know, we had the ability to get much better results earlier in the year that we didn't, and the frustration was kicking in. So I think that right now we're seeing an improvement in performance as well as you know, things going our way a little bit better. And sometimes those things, you know, kind of happen together. You know, if your cars are fast and you're getting yourself in good position, it allows you to make a little bit different choices and decisions that sometimes just put you in a more solid position to get good results. And, you know, I think that there were times I think we were, you know, pulling at straws and just, you know, swinging for the fences, and that was putting ourselves into some risky positions that cost us those good results. So, you know, I'm hoping that will continue, and we're certainly on a good streak. And you just feel the energy in the team, and you know, that confidence is crucial. And when things aren't going your way, how? Why?
Because the car doesn't know what you did last week. Why
Yeah, but this is a people business more than just, you know, the cars are obviously important, but, you know, if the people around you don't believe in you or you don't believe in them, then there's no confidence in what you're doing, and you know, you're telling them that you need this to go faster, and they're going, you know, they're questioning it. You know, you don't want people to question. You want absolute. You want yes. That's what we need to do to make the car go faster. Yes, that's what our driver needs to do. You to get the speed out of it, and it just starts building on one another, and it can build for the good or it can build for the bad.
Holly?
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. Jeff, Jimmy said earlier that in reaction to Tony's accident, that he was a little disappointed. He thought people were being a little hard on Tony, talking about, did he let his team down? He has all of these responsibilities. But Jimmy said, part of what makes Tony Tony and part of what makes him an attraction and things like that in NASCAR is the very fact that he does this. Where do you stand on that? And do you think that, the criticism is unwarranted, or where do you feel?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. When the conversation's on the flip side about who's a real racer in this garage area, who's got the most talent, who's out there doing the most for motorsports, then Tony Stewart rises to the top of that list of the great things that he's doing. Then, as soon as he gets injured, then you say, oh boy, maybe he shouldn't have been doing that. So it's certainly up for debate, and it's been talked about and bringing a lot of interest on this subject. And for me, I say, yeah, that's Tony, and I tell him all the time, when he goes and runs a sprint car race and he wins or he's competitive, I'm like, man, that's awesome, that's unbelievable, and that's because I couldn't do that, and I don't choose to do that. Because just different things that are happening, in my life and the choices that I make. But I applaud him, and I definitely support him in that effort. And it's just unfortunate that this has happened.
Let's go to Connie in the back, and then we'll go to Lee.
Connie Kirk, Examiner.com. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for talking to us today. I'm interested in the boot section of the track here at Watkins Glen, and I'm just wondering what your opinion would be if
I'm interested in the boot section too. I've never driven it, so
yeah. Would you like to?
Absolutely. For years I always said put more turns in, and I think we'll have a better chance at better results. So I think, for our fans watching at home as well as watching here, I think that the course that we run is probably a little bit better, more laps, more suited to our cars. I don't know what would creep up if we went that direction. Would we have brake issues? I don't know all the ins and outs, because I've never driven it. But I like the road courses, and I like challenges, and so I at least like to give it a shot one time.
Let's go to Lee. Raise your hand, Lee.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. I have two questions. First of all, talk about how the go-kart race came about with Tony Stewart for the fundraiser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so through our Kick It program and that sponsorship, Tony's been a great supporter of the kickball tournaments, and obviously with his involvement in sprint car racing, and that whole community has been so supportive of. And we always said this is a grassroots program. What better way, to get it going and have some fun than a grassroots racing program and dirt track racers and the fans and the competitors. And so, like today, we're having a kickball tournament. It's literally right next. It's on the fairgrounds property, basically in Knoxville, and there's drivers that are on teams. There's wives and girlfriends that are on teams. There's fans that are on teams. It's pretty cool. And Tony is a giving guy, and it has a big heart, and so and so. I worked at my schedule so I could go there earlier to be a part of that. He obviously really was a big influence on the whole thing coming together with sponsors and getting fans out there. So there's this really cool it's called Slideways. It's a sprint car, slick track, go-kart track oval, small oval that's out there, and it's a blast. And he had a pretty good fill-in Kyle Larson, who will end up winning the event, finished second. And it was a blast. I mean, we raised, I think, this small little go-kart event ended up raising like $25,000, and so hopefully it's something we can build on and do more of, and obviously love to have Tony back at it next year. But yeah, it was tough because he wasn't there, but it was also we understand how big of an impact he played in that event happening and being a part of it. So I was excited about it, especially racing with him, and we made the best out of it we could.
And Kerry asked you originally, Marcos Ambrose, Juan Pablo Montoya. Now you got to throw in the name Clint Boyer. Clint Boyer's had a fifth, a fourth, and a first place finish on the last 3 road course races. What do you think about how quickly he's acclimated to this style of racing?
Yeah, I'd say Keselowski as well was real strong here last year. Kurt Busch, is fast on the road course. I separate Sonoma from here, so people that were quick in Sonoma doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be quick here. So I think Clint is he's another one of those guys that is just a solid race car driver everywhere you go, and I think his diversity with his dirt track experience and different types of cars shows his talents, and he's a very talented race car driver. So, and it also shows by Martin's victory out in Sonoma and his strong finish, Clint's strong finish here last year, that their road course program is improving as well. So you take talented drivers, good race cars, and the effort towards road racing, and you're going to see results. So, yeah, I look for them to be strong again this weekend.
Let's go over here to Bob, and then we'll go to Jim Utter.
Sporting News, Bob Hockris. When you were out in Knoxville, did you get a sense that those in the short track and sprint car community will look and try to make changes to the safety of their vehicles, or are they more defensive and just feel like they're having a bad stretch right now?
I would like to have talked to I never really talked to World of Outlaw officials and the people that are the big influencers on making those decisions. So I really don't have a good answer for that. When I talk to the guys on the teams, they're like, this is what we have and this is what we do and here's what we're doing. We're just going along business as usual. It happens. Nobody wants to give up an advantage in performance. And, these guys, like I said, I compare them to Space Cowboys, man. They just, that's what makes them awesome. That's what makes the cars incredible. That's what makes their fan base as loyal as it is. They understand that these cars are rocket ships and that, that there's danger involved. But me as a competitor and seeing what has happened in our sport and, what has influenced change for the good and safety, I'm hoping that those with World of Outlaws and those that are the influencers, maybe the chassis builders, I don't know where it really begins, that they'd be willing to step it up. They've made slight changes and improvements in this area, and I don't know all the details of Tony's cars. I heard that there were things on his car that were maybe different than some of the rest that are intended to be safer, but obviously it's not enough.
Let's go here to Jim Utter.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. You have talked in the past this season about how perhaps making some changes in the tires could help improve some of the racing. Are you familiar at all with the zone tread that Goodyear used at the Atlanta test this week, or did you talk to Casey? And do you know enough about it to know whether that is a possibly good idea going down the road?
I have heard about it, understand the concept, and it sounds really interesting and like it has great potential. I did see Casey, but we weren't talking about any testing at Atlanta. It was all sprint car stuff that we were talking about. But I am interested. I know they made a lot of laps, and so I'm interested to find out more about it. I'm hoping that that's something that works for us to give a shot at the next Atlanta race, and I think that's a step towards finding ways, because I'm a big believer that it's not a tire thing, it's a whole, it's the weight distribution of the car, total weight in general, downforce. It's our cars are very difficult on tires, and so it's not just, hey, Goodyear, you got to build a better tire. It's everybody has to work together to allow them the ability to make tires that have some fall off and that can wear and don't just build a lot of heat and blister. So maybe this is a nice compromise for them.
Jim Noble, Brian Nelson, and then end right over here to the left. Go ahead.
Jim Noble, ESPN. Strictly competitively speaking, I know this is going to sound cold, but we just essentially lost a driver and a team that could have contended for a chase spot, maybe contended for a championship. Is there any part of you as a driver that says, you know what, that's one guy who could have knocked us out of the chase, or one guy that we would have had to dealt with in the chase? Is there any sense of a driver of, hey, that's a guy that we don't have to worry about anymore?
Well, I mean, that's certainly not our initial thoughts. I mean, when any time one of our competitors is injured, we're going to think about them and their health first. But there's no doubt that Tony plays a huge influence. I mean, in the chase and in the championship. I mean, we saw him squeak into the chase, just a couple years ago and win the championship. So you never count them out. Their cars are running really good right now, and so I looked at to him as to being one of the biggest threats for the position that we're in.
Let's go to Brian.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network. Jeff, looking toward next week at Michigan. In June, terrible weekend for Hendrick Motorsports. I think we had an engine, 2 crashes. Jimmy was the bright spot in 28th. How much, going back to a track where, those wounds are, I guess, a little fresh, how much does that haunt you, or do you just write it off and say, we know what we got to do to get toward this weekend and fall back on the long-term record at a track like Michigan?
Well, I don't think there's any organization out there better than Hendrick to analyze a situation, that race, take everything, all the information we could gather from each of the cars and find ways to improve that and make sure that those things don't happen, in the future. I mean, for me, it was qualifying as poorly as I did, being in that position to get caught up in a wreck. It wasn't, I don't look at that as just, that was just bad luck. No, we shouldn't have been, in that position to begin with. And we've got to improve the qualifying effort at Michigan. And I like the things that we've learned lately that I think can really help our performance qualifying as well as in the race. And I think we're going to be pretty good in the race. I was pretty happy when they dropped the green what my car felt like. As far as some of the other things, there's only so much that is in my control and in my hands. And I know that when it comes to engines, there's nobody better than the Hendrick Engine Group at making sure we have good power and reliability going back. I'm not sure on the tire issues, but we've gathered all that information. I've got complete faith in Alan and the team to make the right calls when it comes to what's going to allow us to have the best speed, but also reliability when it comes to the setup and the tires as well.
Next question. You have one? Okay, we'll go to you and then finish here.
Jeff Mario Sacco, WETM. Kind of talk about trying to put an end to Marcos's reign of terror here and you getting back in victory lane here.
Well, Marcos, what makes him so good, not to mention his road racing experience over the years, but is his aggressiveness. I mean, he's just so aggressive. And while I think that sometimes that holds him back on the ovals, it pays off big time here. And so that's going to be tough to beat. And I think it was interesting because we're at Sonoma, and he doesn't do as well at Sonoma as he does here because this track, it loves aggressiveness. Sonoma does not like aggressiveness. And so, I think you're going to see him be extremely fast this weekend. I mean, he was fast at Sonoma, but just the fall off was pretty big there. Where here, that's not the case. So I think he's going to be a very, very difficult to beat. Oh, I'm definitely hungry, but again, you got to walk before you can run. We have not been as strong here the last couple of years. I know that if we hit on something, we're gonna be very strong, and hopefully we can go compete with those guys. But we had a shot to finish, I think 8th or 9th here last time we were here, and I think that we need to be shooting for that or better. I think that we had a slow start to the weekend last time we were here because we just didn't get on top of it soon enough. But halfway through the race, we really did, and we just try to learn from that and apply that earlier in the weekend here. Hopefully, we get some laps today. That would help.
Final question. Go ahead.
Just a lot of other tracks see a drop off in attendance and enthusiasm. You never really saw a big drop off at this place. Just from your perspective, why do you think that is?
Yeah, there's just something about the atmosphere of this place. You go out into the campground and there's just people just love being here, being a part of the event. They're having a good time, and it's not just about coming and watching a race. It's a lot more than that, and I think that's just part of the appeal, but. There's a lot of very avid fans around this area too that don't maybe get a chance to get to NASCAR races, or they just are a little more road racing enthusiasts. Hard to say. It's hard to say, but we love it. We love coming here, and the crowd that we get here is an avid one and fun to hear them having a lot of fun out there in the infield all weekend long. And see how excited they get on race day.